If you're new to Articulate Storyline, I might just have the perfect video for you. I'll walk you through everything you need to get started step by step. By the end of this, you will have created your first interactive course. Okay, so let's jump right in. One question that you might have is, what is Articulate and what is Storyline? So Articulate is the company that is producing Storyline, and they have a suite, and this suite is called Articulate 360. And as you can see here in my Articulate 360 desktop app, there are multiple tools, and some of which are desktop based and some of which are web-based. An example for a desktop-based is our Storyline that we'll be focusing on in this tutorial. And another example is Resize 360, which is also a popular authoring tool, but it is web-based. Okay, and let's look at what is possible with Storyline. In this tutorial, we will be developing this course on information security. And I have some assets created for this course, and I will provide everything you need to recreate this course in the description of this video. And here you can see the first slide of this course. It's a title slide and it's presented in the player. The player is what is around the slide. It's these buttons down here, the resources up here, title up here, and the logo and menu. And let's switch to the second slide with the next button, and this slide will be audio narrated.
Welcome to this course on information security. In this course, you'll learn how to safeguard critical data, how to handle interactions with outsiders securely.
So as you can see, there are pictures and text animated in according to the audio narration. And each of the elements has a certain entrance animation. And this is something that you would be also able to create in PowerPoint, but Storyline gives you more ability, and it's the ability to add interactions. And one example for an interaction is on the next slide. And it's a marker interaction. So we have an image on the slide, and it has a person inside the building, it has a person outside the building, and an USB device. And there are markers next to each of these items. And when we hover over one of the markers, there is a title displayed, and when we click on it, there's more content displayed. So we have stranger in the workplace, we have verify before you grant access, and we have think before you plug in. And this is a very basic interaction. And we can also create interactions that involve 360-degree images in Articulate Storyline. And here we have an example of this. So in the background, there's a 360 image, and in front of it, there's a layer explaining what will happen once we click on the Start button. And yeah, let's do this. We can see that there are 3 items. And when I navigate through the 360-degree image, we can see that here we also have markers. And when I click on this marker, there is information revealed about sticky notes. And I can see now I have 1 of 3 visited. There's 1 more marker down here for clean desk policy, and 1 marker here about unlocked screens. Now I have 3 of 3 visited. So let's continue to the next interaction slide, which could be called a process interaction, or you could also call this click to reveal slide, because we have 3 steps, and once we click on one step, there's more information on that step revealed. And once we click on the second step, we get this little check mark icon, and we get the information about step 2. And yeah, that would be the way for the learner to progress through this slide. And with Storyline, you can also create a wide range of quiz slides. And we have one example right here. This is a single choice slide. You could also create multiple choice slide slides, fill in the blank slides, sorting activities, and so on. Here you are asked when should you lock your computer screen, and I will click the third option and I will submit this and I get a feedback. Okay, so by now you have probably realized that the way to develop in Storyline is slide-based, and this is in contrast to Rise, where you have these scrolling pages that you use to organize your content. Why is it a good idea to learn Storyline? I think it's a great idea because you have very high flexibility, you have a huge range of courses that you can create, and you aren't limited in any ways like you are in Rise, because you have only a certain amount of blocks you can choose to create a course. Here you can really create anything you can think of. Okay, and one last question before we start with the user interface might be, is there a free trial? Yes, there is a free trial. As you might have seen in my desktop app, I am also using the free trial because I want to show you only things that you can create with the free trial, because the free trial is a bit restricted in some ways, but we will get to that later. So if you are interested in trying this software without investing the high sum that is charged, you can try it out for a whole month. Okay, so when you open up Storyline, you get this start screen, and here you have different ways to open up projects. You can open your recent projects, or you can open new projects. There are different ways to do this. For this tutorial, we just click on New Project, and then an empty project opens up for us. We have one slide that is empty, and right now we're in Story View. Story View gives us a basic overview of the slides that are in our course, and if we switch to the example course that I have shown you and that we will be building, you can see that here we have two scenes. One is basics and two is quiz. And inside of these scenes we have slides. And scenes are just a way to organize your content. You can think of scenes as chapters in a book. In this first chapter we have 5 slides, and they are like the pages in the first chapter. And to open up one of these slides, we just double click on it, and then we get this first slide in slide view, and we can always switch back to story view by clicking here. And then we can also switch back to the slide by clicking here. In slide view, I can work on my slides, like editing text or working with images. Okay, and then I also have the ribbon here at the top, and this might be familiar to you if you've ever worked with PowerPoint. For example, the Insert tab and the Design tab and other tabs have some similarities with the user interface of PowerPoint. We will stick with the Insert tab. Here you have the possibility to add pictures, add audio, and add text to your slide. And you might have noticed that some of these buttons have a drop-down arrow, like the audio button right here, because you have different ways to add audio to your slide. You could add audio from file or record your mic or do other things. And if we click at the top of our button, we get the chance to open from file. And if you don't know what the top of the button does, you can just hover over it with your mouse, like I'm doing here on the preview. And I will see that clicking this will preview the entire project from the beginning. And because this might take some time to load, I can also click on the drop-down arrow and just choose this slide or this scene to preview, which will speed up this process. Okay, and in the Insert tab, you might have noticed this AI Assistant feature, which right now is a new feature. and gives you the chance to generate images or generate audio and do other things using AI. And this is part of the free trial. But if you choose to purchase Articulate 360, you will have to pay extra for the AI assistant functionality. Okay, and then we've already used the scenes panel here on the left. You also have a scene selector, and you can use this to switch back and forth between your scenes. And one thing that is a huge time saver for me is hovering with my mouse here and then using my mouse wheel to switch between the scenes. Okay, underneath our slide we have the timeline, and the timeline shows you everything that is on your slide. Here we have 2 pictures, we have some text, and we also have audio narration. And it shows us when the objects appear on our slide, and it also shows us how long our slide is. Right next to it are the slide layers, and let's look at the 4th slide, and here we have an intro layer. This is what is shown before you interact with the 360 image interaction. And slide layers are a basic way to add content upon your slide. And right above the slide layers panel is the triggers panel. And triggers are instructions that we add to an object or to a slide that execute an action. So, for example, this intro layer won't show up if we just put it there. We have to tell Storyline what to do with it. So here I've added a trigger that says show layer intro when timeline starts on this slide. Okay, so let's get back to our empty project. If we click on the first slide here, you can see that it has a 4:3 aspect ratio, and I think we should change this. So click on design and then click on slide size. And here you can see the preset 4:3, and we will change this to 16:9. And you can see the pixels for width and height. And you might think that this is a bit small, but I think that this is a good balance between image quality and file size. So I would recommend to you to set this as default size, so you don't have to worry about this every time you start a new project. Now all that's left to do is click OK in this slide size window, and then the change is applied. And now I think it's a good time to save this project. Right now it's untitled 1, and we should click on the floppy disk icon or save icon here, and then we should make sure that we're saving this on our local drive. So if I click up here, you will see that this is on my C drive and in my Articulate projects folder. And this is a good thing because you shouldn't save Storyline projects on a network drive, an external USB, or on cloud storage, because this can cause erratic behavior due to latency. So just make sure it's on your local drive, give it a name. I will call it Information Security Basics. And then one last look at the file type. This is a Storyline project or story file. This is our source file. It contains everything we need to publish this course and make changes to the course. So it's our development file, you could also say. Okay, so let's click on save and get going. In Storyline, there are different ways to create new slides. For the first 2 slides, we're going to create master slides first and then fill content onto them. Okay, so to create a master slide, click on the View tab and then click on Slide Master. And here you can see the master for this project, and this slide here is the title only layout, which we're going to use for our title slide. And we want to insert a picture as a background. And yeah, let's take this title background. All of these pictures will be available to you in the description of this video. So click on title background and then open it. This has the right aspect ratio and yeah, will be aligned perfectly to your slide. And you might be wondering where I got this picture from. I designed some slide layouts for this course using Canva. And yeah, I also created a company, which is Data Defend Consulting. The course will be for this company, and yeah, they have a brand guideline, which I can show you, and they also tell us what their colors are and how their fonts should look like, and here are the slide layouts. Okay, so let's get back to the master slide. The picture is in front of the title of the slide. So there is a text box. We can see here in the timeline, this text box is behind the picture. So click on the picture, do a right click, and then click on send to back. That way the text will be promoted, and then we can select the text. Make sure that the border of the text box is solid, and then we can start moving and we get these pink smart guidelines. And yeah, let's move it down here so that it's aligned in the center, and then use this handle right here to make it a bit smaller so that it doesn't cover the lock picture here. And then while the border is still solid, go into the Home tab, and here you can format the text. As long as the border is solid, all of the text will be selected. So let's do a light color. And then, as I've said, Data Defend wants us to use a certain font. So let's pick this from this list. I can scroll down, but I can also use my keyboard and type in M to get a bit further down. And then here I have Montserrat. Okay. And then I can also make this, align this to the left side of the text box. And I will have to check the brand guide once again. And it says that headings should be Montserrat extra bold. Okay, so this is another font that we can also pick in a storyline. Let's, again, using the M key doesn't help me. Here is Montserrat extra bold. Okay. So this layout is done. Let's click on Slide Master and then click on Close Master View. And double click on the first slide and then do a right click in the Scenes panel. And here we can click on Apply Layout and then choose the layout we've just created. And now we can add the title to the slide, and I know what this title is, but I will just show you that I've also created a storyboard for this course, and it's right here. And yeah, it tells me that the title should be Information Security, Keeping Company Data Safe. So I will just right click on this and copy it, go back to Storyline, click into the text box, and then use my keyboard to press Ctrl V and therefore inserting it. Okay, and let's look at this. To get a bit more space, we could also collapse the timeline or minimize the timeline by clicking on this symbol right here. And then we can look at this, and I think that there should be some separation between the title and the subtitle. So let's change the font of the subtitle to Montserrat. And this looks better already, but I think it should also be a bit smaller. So let's pick 20 maybe. And I think that this looks quite good. Okay, yeah. Because I don't want to choose the font every time we add text to our project, it's a good idea to use theme fonts. So let's do this right now. Go to the Design tab, and here under Fonts you can create new theme fonts. And then we would pick Montserrat Extra Bold for the heading font, and then Montserrat for the body font. Call this Data Defend 1 and then save it. And then when we click up here, we can see that it is this is Data Defend. I've created this beforehand, but I will pick Data Defend 1. And now every time we add new text, like for example, I could add some text right here, it will be automatically Montserrat. And this can save us some time. So I think you should do this if you know you're going to be using a certain font set for your project. Okay, so let's delete this text box. If you don't type in any text, it will delete itself when you click right next to it. Let's look at the timeline. You see there is only the text box for our title. And we've created the first slide and we have our theme fonts, and I think this would be a perfect time to save our project. It's always a good idea to save your project early and then keep on saving often, because sometimes Storyline crashes and they don't have an autosave feature. They have an auto recovery feature in case something like this happens, but you still might lose some of your progress. So I would recommend that you save your project every time you make a meaningful change. Okay, so let's create the second slide, which was this animated and audio narrated slide. So let's hop into Storyline, and then we need another layout. Let's go to the View tab and then click on Slide Master, and this time we're going to create a title and content layout. Right now it looks like this. It already has the right font, but now we're going to insert a picture. So let's click here, picture, and then we need the title and content background. And once again, I will right click and bring this to the back. And now I think we should work with the text box for the slide title. I've clicked on it and now the border is solid. So let's move this a bit or make it smaller so that it doesn't get out of this box right here. And then I think we should align the text to the left side. So let's go to the Home tab and then click right here. And now the font needs to be white, in my opinion, so that we can read it better. And this looks quite good already. Now let's work with the second text box. Let's bring this down a bit like this with the handle. And yeah, I think this looks quite good already, and I think we're good to go. Click on Slide Master and then click on Close Master View. And now in the Scenes panel, do a right click, click on New Slide, click on Basic Layouts, and then click on Title and Content. And we have our slide. This is supposed to be an introduction slide. I have all the relevant content in the storyboard. So I will need the introduction and I will need this text right here. I'm going to copy the text using Control-C, and then I'm going to minimize my storyboard once again. And now I know that it was introduction, the title. I'm going to type it in here, introduction. And now I'm going to paste the text right here. I could use Control-V. I could also use this paste option right here. And if I click on the drop down, I have more paste options, like using the destination theme, which I want to do. Okay, so now I have the text in here, If I look at the slide, I can also collapse the timeline once again to have this in a bit of a larger view. And now I think we should work on the format of the text. This right here should be bolded in my opinion, and it should be bigger, maybe 18. And then for this text, I want another font color. I want this purple. So I'm going to mark this, and then right here, I've got different options to choose a color, and one of those is the eyedropper tool. So I can use the eyedropper tool, go up here, and then pick the color from there, and it will be applied once I click on it. And I think this looks quite good. One thing that I think we should do is make some room for the pictures that will show up here. I can make the text box smaller by dragging this handle, and then I get the smart guides, and then I just let go. Yeah, this looks better. And now I think this should be bullet points, and I get the bullet points in my home tab in the paragraph group, and right here there are bullet points, and I can even change the symbol by clicking on the drop down right here, and I'm going to pick this, and now I think we should make this a bit bigger also. Maybe, yeah, I think 16 looks good. Okay, and now we're done with our text. And let's go ahead and add some pictures from the content library. Once again, we're clicking on Insert, and here we have the content library. What is content library? Let's switch to the website of Articulate to get an idea about this. Content library is basically a library of royalty-free course assets that you can use, and the main advantage is that you can add everything while you're working in Storyline, so you don't have to break up your workflow and go to another website. You can just stay in Storyline and keep and get your assets right inside of the application. And let's do this. Of course, we can add photos. I've talked about this. We can also add characters, illustrations, icons, and videos. Let's click on photos. And I have to look at my storyboard because I have marked down what kind of images I wanted to have. One is a workplace, i.e. desk with monitor. I'm going to search for workplace, and then delivery of a package. And I have made I found some good pictures when I looked for package delivery man. So I'm going to copy this as well. Okay, so let's look for the workplace picture. Type in workplace, hit enter. And yeah, these are the pictures that come up. When you hover with your mouse, you see where they are from. This, for example, is from Pexels, just like the one that I'm going to pick right here. And then I'm going to click on Insert. Okay, and now you can see that it was added to my slide, and it's a very large picture. So I'm going to make it a bit smaller and then put it right here for now. And now let's add the second picture. Go back to the Insert tab and click on Photos in the Content Library group. And then I have this search term in my clipboard. Let's hit Enter and then look for the picture that I wanted to look for. And I think it was this one, because this symbolizes someone that is outside of your organization. So let's insert it. And once again, it's a larger picture. Okay. Now, every time that I click on a picture, I get a context menu up here. And then I get the Format tab right here. And I can do all sorts of stuff. I can adjust brightness, contrast. I can add a shape. I can work with picture styles. I can arrange, align, and I can crop the picture. What I want to do with these pictures is make them almost square. So I will pick the first picture and then click on crop. And then I can use these handles here to work with the size, and I get a preview of the pixels, height and width. And I can use this to get some information about if this is square or not. And yeah, Now it's square. And yeah, the monitor is not right in the center, so I will move this a bit over here and move this a bit over here. And I think that, yeah, I'm a bit of a perfectionist, sorry. I think that this looks okay. We're almost square. And then the same for this picture right here. Let's crop it. Some on this side and a little bit more on that side. Okay, this is almost square. I'm going to click on crop again, and now I will line these up, and you can see they have the same height. And yeah, I think this looks quite good, and now it's just a matter of arranging these on the slides in the way that we want it. And I will also add a style. So if I select both of them, holding down the Control key, I can go up here into the picture styles and, for example, choose moderate frame white, or even beveled matte white. I think that this looks quite good. And now I can go ahead and spread these out maybe like this. And then I can even rotate this a bit. So maybe put this right here and not that much rotation, maybe like this. And I can rotate this up here by holding this handle. And yeah, I think that this could look quite good. And let's look at the timeline. First, I will have to maximize this right here. Okay, and now I can see that I have a text box for the introduction. I have a text box for the content text, and I have both of my pictures right here. I can see that the standard duration for a slide is 5 seconds. And to make working with these elements a bit easier for me, I see the file names of the pictures right here, but I should also work with the names that I can give inside of Storyline to these assets. So this will make working easier and more efficient later on. So I will just go in here and double click on the title, and I will give my own name. So I would say for this introduction text, I would say txt, and then underscore title, and then hit enter, double click here, and then say txt underscore content. And then here for the workplace picture, later on I want this to show up when it says critical data, so I could also double click here and say pick underscore critical data. And then here I could do a double click and then say pick outsiders. And yeah, the structure is just that first I'm going to say, okay, this is text, this is a picture, and then giving it a meaningful name so that I know what I'm working with later on. This comes in especially handy when we're working with triggers, which I will come to later. Okay, so let's add the audio for the slide. I have some audio prepared. Let's click on Insert and then click on Audio and then click on Audio from File. And then here I have this 1.2 audio. I will open it, and then you can see that the timeline has adjusted its length to the length of the audio that I've added. And you can see that the other elements have been stretched for this duration. And this is because you can see when I right click here, they have a check mark here where it says show until end. Okay, now we can work with the timeline and the audio to make this fully animated slide. I can preview the audio, and because it's on the timeline, I can click down here on this play icon.
Welcome to this course on information security.
Okay, and yeah, I'll just click stop again. So as the audio will be playing along for my learner, I want the bullet points, text, and the pictures to show up according to the narration. And yeah, let's do this. First, I will add an animation to the text. So I'll click on the text element here in the timeline, and then I will click on animations. And then here I have entrance animations, exit animations, emphasis animations, and so on. I will click on entrance animations, and then I will choose wipe. And then I get effect options, and I want the text to show up from the left. And then we have another very important effect option, and it's right here, the sequence by paragraph. And this will give me the opportunity to show each paragraph at a different time. And this is highlighted here in the timeline by this little triangle. If I click here, it's like a drop down, and then I have one element for each paragraph, and I can move these around. And this will indicate when this will be showing up or when this will be animated in. Okay, and now I will add some animations for our pictures, and I think that I can use the Control key to mark both of those, and then click on entrance animations, and I want them to fly in, and they automatically get the enter from bottom. And I'm fine with the durations. You can check out different durations for your animations, but I will stick with the standard ones. Okay, and now I basically need to know when to animate this in. As you can see now, the timeline is pretty full already. One thing that you could do is the timeline is a panel, and you can undock every panel by clicking on this icon right here. Now the timeline is popped out, and I can move it anywhere I like. I could also move it on a second screen that I have right here, and this is something that I would really recommend you to do, because this makes your life so much easier if you have a second monitor and that you can just move the timeline over. It's really a great advantage. For this tutorial, I will pop this back in and then maybe make it a bit larger like this, and then I can start working. One thing that I will do right now is using cue points. Cue points are a huge time saver for me. As I will preview the audio here, I can add cue points to my timeline by by typing C on my keyboard. And every time I hit C on my keyboard, a little check mark will show up right here on the timeline, and then I can use these later on to move the text and the pictures where I would want them. So I will make a check mark every time one of those topics here is talked about. So I will just make sure that it's at the beginning. So click on stop and then click on play.
Welcome to this course on information security. In this course, you'll learn how to safeguard critical data, how to handle interactions with outsiders securely, and how to adopt daily habits that contribute to a safer work environment.
Okay, so I have my 4 cue points right now here added. I don't know if this was 100% correct, so I'm going to move the first one a bit over here next to the start of the waveform, and I think the rest looks quite good. And now I can just drag the text to where I need it. So the first one was in this course you will learn. I will move it to the first cue point, and it even snaps to the cue point. This is just great time saver. Second one is here. How to handle interactions with outsiders is here, and then how to adapt daily habits is right here. And then I will also move the pictures. Critical data was the second one, and then the outsiders. Oh, I've hit the playhead. Let's click on stop. Maybe. I want it to be right here, and then I can still move the first element. Yes, this was the outsiders, and it is at the 3rd level. And now I have animations, and I have timed these animations, and I think now would be a good time to preview this as a whole. So how will this look for the learner? So click up here, click on this slide, and let's watch it.
Welcome to this course on information security. In this course, you'll learn how to safeguard critical data, how to handle interactions with outsiders securely, and how to adopt daily habits that contribute to a safer work environment. Together, we'll explore.
Okay, I think this looks quite good. Now, we have everything for this slide, and we should definitely save our work right now. Okay, so I've already told you about the mock-up company that I've created for this course, which was Data Defend, and I've told you that they have a color palette, and this color palette, or let's say this color here, I have added to this headline right here by just using the eyedropper. This isn't the best way to add colors, because I will have to change everything later on by hand if there are changes to the colors that should be used. A better way is using a color palette, or in Storyline it is called theme color. And I have created theme colors for Data Defend. And if I apply the theme colors for Data Defend, I can choose the color very easily, because then it will be right here. I have all the colors available right here, and you can do this for your course by going into the design tab and then clicking on colors and then clicking on create new theme colors, and then you can add the colors right here. Click on the drop down and then you can enter hex codes right here, and in the material that I will provide for you, you have this file right here, and here are all the hex codes for all the colors that I've used. So if you want to, you can recreate this. I have a video on this topic on how to create a color palette for a course available, and I will link to it. You can watch this for a more detailed explanation. For now, I've just, created this beforehand, picked it, and now I can reap all the benefits, like I'm going to do in the next slide that we're going to create, because here I will also need the colors. We're going to build a simple interaction slide right now, and for this I am once again going to use the right click in the scenes panel and then click on new slide and then click on basic layouts, and I'm going to choose title and content, and this is going to be, if you let me look in my storyboard, this is going to be stay alert, find the security risks. So I can copy the title right here, Control C, and then go back into Storyline and click in here and then hit Control V, and I have my title. This time I will not need this text box, so I can just click on it here so that the border is solid, and then I can hit delete on my keyboard, and now I can insert the floor plan. This is also an asset that I will provide to you. It's right here, the floor plan. It has a transparent background, and when I paste it here, it's a bit too large, I think. I can move it down a bit, but I will still have to make it a bit smaller using these handles. And then I want to try to align it in the center of the slide. And I think that this looks okay. And now we're going to add markers, but before we do this, I would recommend that you lock this. This is possible right here in the timeline, and I will just lock the floor plan because now I'm going to add markers and I don't want to interfere with the picture that is underneath. So this is locked. I'm going to click on insert, and I think I'm ready to collapse the timeline once again, and then I can, in the insert tab, look for marker. Here are the markers, and I want to, here you can already see that now the purple is automatically applied. Normally this would be in kind of a blue color, and now I have the right color selected already, and I can start by adding markers. And if I click, the marker is added, and there's also a title for the marker and a description. And this is what will show up when the learner clicks on the marker. And now I will once again revert to my storyboard and look. First one was think before you plug in. Copy this and then the text. Okay, copy this. Now I can click in here. I have a clipboard manager. Think before you plug in was the first thing, and then unknown devices. Okay, if you want to know more about the clipboard manager that I'm using, I will link to a video that I've done on this topic. Okay, so now I have a title and I have I just realized that this is the wrong content. This is about the USB device, which is right over here, but you can see I can just move this over here, but now I have the problem that this is outside of my slide. So let's zoom out a bit by holding down the shift key and using my mouse wheel, and now I can grab this right here until this cursor shows up, and then I can start moving this. For example here, now I'm obstructing some of the view, but this is too big anyway, so let's make it a bit smaller, maybe like so. Yeah, now I have my first marker. Let's add a second marker just by copying this, Control C, Control V, and then I could move this over here, and then once again look at my storyboard. This was verify before you grant access, Control C, and then here also Control C, and then put this in here using my clipboard tool, verify before you grant access, and then text and so on. And I think that you get the idea. And yeah, let's preview this slide. As you can see, the markers are lighting up, and when I move my cursor over here, I get the title, and when I click, I get more text. And yeah, this is just a very simple interaction slide. And while we're here in the preview, I've already talked about the player, which is this frame that is around the content. In Storyline, you also have the possibility to preview this for different devices. So I could look at how does this look on a tablet device, in landscape mode, in portrait mode, and on a phone, in the different orientations. And one thing to highlight is that the player, so the frame around the course, is responsive, is mobile responsive, but the content isn't actually. So the slide aspect ratio is fixed. Okay, so it just stays the same slide on each device. Okay, so let's close the preview. I think you've got the idea. I don't have to add the third one, so let's just click on save. Okay, and now let's create the 360-degree image interaction that I've showed you. To do this, we will go back to Storyline and then right-click, new slide and basic layouts, and we want a blank. And onto this, we will add our 360-degree image by clicking on Insert and then clicking on 360-degree image. And I have one that I've created with AI, and I'm going to pick this one, M3 UHD, click on Open, and now it is on our slide. And just some background on 360-degree images. When you open a 360-degree image, normally on your desktop, you will see a picture that looks like this, so it looks a bit distorted, and that's because it's a picture of the whole sphere that is around you, and it has an aspect ratio of 2:1. And yeah, this is because there are 360 degrees in this direction and 180 degrees in this direction. And yeah, you can get these on free sites like Pexels or Unsplash by searching for 360-degree image or equirectangular. And you could also use paid sites like Adobe Stock, where you might find more pictures, and you can also use 360-degree cameras to take your own pictures or use AI to generate pictures for you. And as I've said, that's what I've done to obtain this picture. And now that we have it in Storyline, as you can see, it is right here on our timeline. We want to add a marker to it, and we will do this by clicking on Edit 360-degree image. And once we do that, we are in a different sort of editor. So it's like a 360-degree image editor. And here we can add markers. So one marker that we wanted to create was for sticky notes. So I have the sticky notes right here, and then I can click on marker, and then I just point to where I want the marker to be, and then I can add sticky notes as a title, and for the body I will consult my storyboard, and in the storyboard I have some text, and I will just copy this and paste this, and I am done creating my marker. As you can see, the color of the marker was automatically chosen from our theme colors. And yeah, just for fun, I will add another marker right here to the desk. Click on marker, click right here, enter clean desk policy, and get the text from my storyboard. And I think you get the idea of how this works. Okay, this is the label, and to this label I could also, if I click up here on the label tab, I could also add picture, video, audio and buttons. And of course I could also change the accent color of my marker, as you can see here, and I could also give it another icon. But for now I'm happy with this. In this panel right here I can see that I have free navigation, so the learner can navigate through these markers any way they like, and I will show a progress indicator. So I think it's a good idea to save and close this. And I should also do a preview right here. And I can see that, yeah, I can move through the picture. I can click on the markers. The text is shown. And yeah, this looks good. And now I think we should give our learners some advice on how to use this, because they are just on this slide with the 360-degree image, and we don't want to leave them alone with the picture. So I've created some text right here in the storyboard. It says this is an interactive 360-degree image. Click and drag to look around the office and find hidden security risks, and so on. And this, I want to present this text to our learners. So let's copy this, Control C, and then how do we present this? We want to work with a layer, because we can use this layer and we can tell Storyline very easily when to show and when not to show this layer. So in the layers panel, let's click on new layer and then give this a name by double clicking right here, calling this intro. So now we have our intro layer, and I want to insert a rectangle as a base for our text. So let's click on shape and then choose one of these rectangles. And then I will just drag, and yeah, I have a rectangle. It's somewhere on my slide, and I am going to pick it up and move it with the smart guides so that it's in the middle. And then I'm going to switch to the Format tab and then do some formatting. First of all, I don't want an outline, but I want a shape effect. I want a shadow around this. And yeah, I think that the shape looks good. And now for the text, I still have the copied text in my clipboard. So let's insert a text box by clicking on text box in the Insert tab, and then I can just drag this right here. Yeah, like so. And now I can just insert the text that I already have. Let's insert it, and as you can see, it is black. I can mark all my text and then change the color right here to white, and I can also make it a bit bigger, maybe like so. And yeah, let's pick the text box so that the border is solid, and now I can move this around so that it's in the middle or in the center. And yeah, I think we should add an icon just to symbolize the 360-degree aspect. Click on, in the content library 360 group, click on icons and then search for 360 degrees. I've done this beforehand, and yeah, I like this one. So let's pick it and then click on insert. If you don't see it, you may have to load more results to see the same icon. And now I have the icon on my slide, and I'm going to move it up, and you can see that it is black, and I can change the color by clicking on shape fill and then picking this white color. And yeah, I think this looks good. I could work on the size of the icon by dragging these handles, and here you might have to use the shift key to keep the aspect ratio. I will leave it like this, and now I want to add a button. We will use a button to tell Storyline to close this layer so that the learner can start with the interaction. So let's insert a button in the Insert tab, click on this button, and then I will choose this one, and I will add it underneath my rectangle because it will have automatically the same color and we won't be able to see it that good. So let's add it here and center it, and then I will add some text, and I will add start in all caps. And yeah, let's invert the colors. So click on the button so that the border is solid, and then choose, oh yeah, I want an outline, and the outline should be this purple. I want a white fill color, and then now you can see the text. Let's click on the Home tab and then choose another color for the font, maybe the purple. And I think that this looks quite good. Let's move it up. Okay. Yeah, if you don't want to work with the smart guides, you can also, in the Format tab, click on these align symbols right here. So I will align it to center, and now it's in the center of my slide. And I think that this layer looks good as it is. And we could do a preview, but we wouldn't be able to see the intro layer because on the base layer, this is where Storyline will start. It won't show us the intro layer. And to get this result, we will need to add a trigger. So in our triggers panel, click on new trigger, and then the trigger wizard shows up, and the trigger wizard is made up of two main sections, and the first one is the action, and then the second is the when or the event. So what should Storyline do? It should show us a layer, and it automatically picks the intro layer. And when should this happen? When I have to scroll down until timeline events, when the timeline starts on this slide. This is what I want to happen, so that when I preview this slide, our intro layer shows up. And as you can see, we have this button to start, but there's nothing happening here because we haven't told Storyline yet what should happen. So let's do this by clicking on the intro layer and then choosing our button, and then let's add a trigger. By clicking on the button first, Storyline will pre-populate something in the when section for us. When the user clicks button 1, this is what we want. but we don't want to show a layer, we want to hide a layer, and it's this layer. So let's click on OK. This went relatively fast, and now we can do a preview of the slide, and you will see that this works now. Okay. Yeah, once again, it is time to save our progress. Okay, so let's look at how to add a new slide from Content Library. To do this, I will just click on New Slide up here and then click on Content Library. And in the Content Library, you will find a huge selection of slides, and they are categorized into templates. For example, we have the velocity template, and the velocity template is the only template that is available in the free trial. And yeah, these are fully functioning slides, and you can just use them in your projects. And let's say we want to create a process interaction. So let's filter for interactions, and then I will choose this process right here. We could also add more by holding down our Control key, or even select all of the ones that you see here by holding down the Shift key. And yeah, this is just a very good way to add a lot of slides quickly. But yeah, for now we're only going to add the process into our project. And as you can see, the colors and fonts don't match the rest of our project. That's because the velocity template has its own theme, but we can change that really quickly in Storyline by clicking on the Design tab and then choosing the color theme that we have created, and also choosing the fonts that we have created. And in a matter of seconds, this fits our project really well. And this, I will just show you that this is also working. So not only do you get a slide layout, but you also get a working interaction. So I get a hover effect right here, and when I click, there's more information on step 1, and then when the learner has read this, they can click on step 2, and then step 1 gets this check mark right here, and then they can reach step 3 and so on. And yeah, now we only need to add our text, and to do this we will click on the slide layers where the steps are, and then we can just change the subtitle and change the text right here. And you can find, if you need some material for this, I have this slide is also part of our storyboard, so you can just copy and paste from the storyboard what you might need. And then you are done creating a simple process interaction. And I think that this is a great way to save time developing as a beginner. And it's also a great way to learn, because you have these slides readily available to you. You don't have to search any websites or forums to get these examples. You can just import them into your project, and then you can inspect them. And what I mean by that is, for example, we could try to find out how the check mark that shows that the step was visited was created. And yeah, let's try to do this. So first, on our base layer, we have the steps, and these are rectangles, I think. And then we have some more text on the slide. And we have slide layers, and these slide layers just show more information for each of the steps. And we have some triggers that tell Storyline to show layer step 1 when the user clicks step 1. So step 1 is this. And you might be asking, okay, so I didn't see the checkmark anywhere. How does it appear? And the answer to this is in the states. And states are variations of an object that can be used for different purposes. And here we have a normal state, we have a hover state. The hover state appears when you hover your mouse over the step 1, and when you have visited step 1, it pulls up the visited state. And these states are what's called built-in states. So in Storyline you have states that are built in, that are working automatically. So the hover state will always show up when you hover over the element. And then you also can create custom states that you might have to use triggers to activate. And yeah, so now we know that the check mark is part of the visited state, and if we ever wanted to change something about this, we could just do a double click on the visited state and then change, for example, we could change the icon, maybe change the color or something, and then we would just say done, and then something else would show up when the step 1 is visited. And yeah, I just think that the content library slides are a great way to learn that is often overlooked. But I think you should really try to work with these slides. They are really quite powerful. And yeah, we have added another slide, so let's save our progress. Okay, and before we add a quiz slide to our project, I think it's time to tidy up a bit. So let's switch to Story View, and here I would like to zoom it in a bit so that I can read the titles better. And to do this, I will just hold down the Control key and use my mouse wheel to zoom in. And I can see that I have an untitled scene still. And to change this, I will double click, and then I will type in intro, or I think I said basics in the storyboard. Let's look up in the storyboard what I have defined as slide titles. So we have course title, introduction, stay alert, explore the scene, and 3 steps to protect sensitive information. And I can change these really easily. Right here, if I double click, I can type in course title. These slides get the title from the title that is on the slide. Here, because we have worked with a blank layout, there is no title, so we would have to double click right here and then type in explore the scene. And for the last one, I will just copy from the storyboard. It is 3 steps to protect sensitive information. Copy this from here, switch back to Storyline, and then double click here and paste this. And these titles are important because they will show up in the menu of the player. Okay, so I've said that scenes are a way to structure your content, and we will do this right now and add a second scene. So click on New Scene in the Home tab, and then we will change the title to Quiz. And then, yeah, we will jump into the scene by double clicking on the first slide. And then I will click on New Slide, and then I will add a graded question. And then here we have a range of built-in graded question, and we will take the built-in multiple choice. And don't get confused here. This, you might also refer to this as single choice, and to multiple response as multiple choice. Storyline has a bit of a different naming style for these, but if you think about it, it also makes sense. You might just not be used to this. Okay, so let's click on multiple choice and then click on insert slide. And now we get a form, and we can fill this out, and then we will get a question, and this is done in form view, and then later we can look at slide view to see how this will look like for a learner. So let's refer to the storyboard and see what question I've come up with. So question 1 is, when should you lock your computer screen? I can copy this, Control C, and then jump back to Storyline and type in Control V on my keyboard, and then I have the question, and then I need my options. So the first one is only at the end of the workday. I can paste this in here, and then I will have to get rid of this box. And then the second one is every time you step away from your desk, no matter how briefly. And then the third one is when you leave for lunch or meetings and so on. And let's add this here. And now I have to tell Storyline which is correct, and it's the second one. And now I can do some configuration up here. For example, the answers should be shuffled, and I want only one attempt possible. And yeah, these are all options that you can use to edit the way the question is carried out, but for now I'm happy with this. Down here we have text for a correct feedback and an incorrect feedback. We could also work with points, but for now I'm happy with all of this, and I will just click on slide view, and we can see that this isn't fitting the rest of our course all that well. So we can apply a layout by right-clicking right here in the scenes panel, and then clicking on apply layout, and then choosing title and content. And there's a placeholder that comes with this layout that we can just delete. Once the border is solid, I will hit delete on my keyboard, and now the answer options are right here, and also the border needs to be solid so that I can move this down with this handle. And yeah, I think this looks quite good this way. One thing that I want to do before we preview this, I want to add a character, and for this I will make this a bit smaller, like so, and then, no, I don't want this to break, so I think this looks good. And then we will insert a character. Click on the Insert tab, and then here in the 360 category you have characters, and I will pick, you have different styles, photographic, illustrated, modern, and then you can choose different options. And yeah, I want a female, and I want it to be Atsumi, and I could insert her, but I can also choose a pose first, and just click on pose, and then I will choose this pose. I could filter these, but yeah, I'm happy with the one where she looks like she might have a question. And I will insert her, and then she will show up on this slide, and I can move her over here, and maybe I will make her a bit taller, so yeah, maybe like this. I think this looks okay, and now it's time to preview our slide. And yeah, I think this looks good, and now the learner can choose their answer, and I'm going to pick a wrong one and then click on submit, and then they get a feedback, and then they can continue. And if we replay this, because we only have one try, we can try it again, and you will see the correct feedback. Okay, and with this our question slide is done. We could also change the title by double clicking here and then typing in question 1, and we can get rid of the untitled slide with the delete key. And yeah, for now we are done with creating slides. So let's save our progress. Okay, so before we look at how we can publish this course, I think it is time that we think about how the player should look. And to edit the player, in the Home tab, click on Player. And then in this window, we have a whole lot of options to customize our player. One thing that I want to point you to is for this project, because we have a slide that is narrated, maybe we should add a play and pause, player control, and also a seek bar. I think this would be a great addition. And then for the design, maybe we should also add the logo of the company, and click on the check mark here and then click on plus logo and then click on image from file. And here I have prepared a logo for this project, and if we add it here, it looks okay, but we can make it look better if we switch to the light version of the player. And for this, click on colors and effects up here, and then we can switch to the light theme. And yeah, this looks better. If we look at the menu right here, we can also see that Storyline has applied our accent 1 color as the accent color for the player. And you have much more options to customize the player, but for now I think this is enough. You could save the player and import it into other projects. We don't need to do this. We can just save our project and the player will be saved as well. So I think we're good to go. We can click on OK. And now also here in the Home tab, we have the option to publish. If we click on publish, we can see the different options that we have. We could publish to the web. We could publish to an LMS, and then we could also use the Review 360 tool, which I would recommend you get familiar with, because this is a tool that you can use to share your content real easily. And yeah, we will do this right now. I will shorten the title a bit, so I will write Information Security Basics, and then I will just click on Publish, and then this might take a while. Okay, Storyline is done publishing this. We will click on View Project, and now our course is uploaded to Review 360. Anyone that we share the link to this course to can take a look at this, can look at the slides and work through the course. And what's great, that they can also comment. So I could send this to a subject matter expert and have them write their comments right here. For example, they could write, please add a printer to the floor plan and post this. And then I will be notified and we can continue working on this project. Okay, I think this is everything that I wanted to cover today. I really hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you want to see more of my content, please consider subscribing. I will try to put out more helpful content for you. Thank you so much. Bye.